Ms. Bernita Jenkins, candidate for District 2 Supervisor, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome.
Well, let's just start off with how your campaign is going so far. You really only have 60-something days to really campaign, get your name out there. Tell us about your efforts so far.
So far, we've gotten things like the website almost completed. We've gotten postcards ready to go. We're doing mailers that we're getting out as well. So the postcards are going to be a combination of two, the mail out as well as go to doors and knock on doors with. We have a well-rounded group of people that have raised their hands and say they wanted to help. And it's not just in Bakersfield, it's across the county, which I'm really excited about. So we're moving in the right direction.
And I'm assuming one of the most difficult things for you in your campaign is this kind of short time crunch you're having to deal with here.
It most certainly is. Part of the reason is because we did not know until the very end. So why even start until you know what's exactly going to happen? So that's been difficult for us. I've ran races before and we've had plenty of time to think about how we were going to do things and get things done. But yes, it has been a little bit more difficult this time.
So run us through the timeline of your candidacy. When exactly did you start contemplating a run for the supervisorial seat? And then when did you decide, okay, I'm officially in it?
So when he first was off on medical, I just knew that at that point he probably wasn't going to come back. And so it was a conversation between me and my children. In the past, it was me, my husband, and our children, but this time it was just us. And we sat and we talked about it, and we let it go. And then about the 1st of August is when things started ramping, well, a little before the 1st of August, things started ramping up again. What is he going to do? How is he going to do things? And so we started to have a discussion about it again. The day that I actually picked up papers was like the final. That's when I said, let's do this thing.
And my understanding is that you have run for political office before, but you've never held political office?
Incorrect.
Incorrect. I'm sorry, please correct me. Give me a little bit more on your background in politics, Ms. Jenkins.
So in 1999, I ran for school board.
School board, there we go.
And it was for the Greenfield Union School District.
Yes.
And my children and my husband and I all took little cars that we made at home and we just walked our neighborhoods. And we beat out both incumbents. So one of them was displaced. He was later put back on the board because we needed somebody to fill a space. But I won. And then at the end of that term, 7th Ward came open. And so I decided to run for 7th Ward. And lo and behold, was my first introduction to the former supervisor. And they dropped him into our area. He never lived in the area while he was running. And they beat us.
I actually wanted to get into kind of the inside baseball of Kern County politics a little later down in the interview, but because you mentioned it, like you said, that was kind of your first exposure to the former supervisor and also to the local GOP machine, as many of us call it. There is no GOP machine candidate in the District 2 race per se, but I think you and I both know, even though it's nonpartisan, it's still partisan in many ways. So as the lone Democrat and as the lone woman of color, in this race, you're up against a certain pool of candidates when it comes to party, when it comes to gender. Can you tell us more about this fight for you in this candidate pool, Ms. Jenkins?
In this candidate pool, there are 5 men. Being the only woman, that's sometimes a plus. We are in a different space and time because there are establishments. And it's not only the GOP establishment, there's also on the Democratic side establishments. And so now it's get past the establishments, show the people that that's not what you're about, get out there and work for the people like you have for the past 40 years of your life and do the job. And I think anybody that comes in here as an establishment candidate of any kind, you're coming in the wrong way. You need to be able to come and sit on this nonpartisan seat and be bipartisan in working with everybody that's on that dais. It's not about me, it's not about who's on the dais, it's about the people. And we've got to change the way we look at Kern County.
Tell us more about how you get past that establishment, Ms. Bernita, because you've experienced and unfortunately lost to the local GOP establishment. And my understanding is that at this time it's still unclear if the Kern Democratic Party will be endorsing you in this race.
So the Kern Democratic Party will not be endorsing me, and that's okay too. I think a lot of it has to do with my stance on same-sex marriage. I have a belief. But at this particular point in time in life, it is the law, and the law stands. I don't fight against the law is there. I believe in equal rights for everyone, and that's what I have fought for, whether I was sitting behind the attendance desk at BHS or if I was working for the California Nurses Association as a labor rep. I'm all about making the right stance for everyone, to make sure everybody sees that there's equality, and equality is for everyone. And I don't know if you're going to find that in every candidate. So walking across that line, I can walk across that fine line. I've done it a number of times, and I've worked with different people of different parties and been able to get things done. I think that's the most important part, is coming across that line and working with people and letting them see that you can move things and you can find an answer. We're going to work together to find answers. This isn't about Bernita. We're going to work together to find an answer.
And last thing about partisanship, I promise, then we'll dive into the issues. But again, as the lone Democrat in this race, right, you're going up against many conservative individuals. It's a conservative district. Scrivner was known to be the most conservative supervisor on the board. So again, what makes you confident you can appeal to the Republicans, to the Democrats, and the independents that are in District 2?
So one of the things that I had to do working in the school system was to teach children that this is a very fine line, and if you don't learn how to navigate this fine line, then you will not be able to live in this United States. And I do believe that that's what's happened. People haven't learned to navigate the fine line. So there are times when you can't be Democrat, you can't be Republican, you have to be the person that is walking that fine line that says, okay, now if I go over here and I sit with David, and he says, this is the way I think we need to go, then I go and sit over on this side with the Democrat, and they say this is the way, then it's, okay, can we come together and have a conversation and decide on the best way for all the people of Kern, not just for our little segment or whoever is our special interest. That's not what I'm about. I am not about the special interests. I want us to move beyond that.
And let's get into issues. What are some of your top priorities that you're really looking forward to working with the board on?
Homelessness is one. I think that we could do a better job of effectively moving some people off the street. Now, don't get me wrong. I know there are some people that don't want to move. They want to stay out on the street. I have a very, very good friend. And his brother and I often go out and talk to him and try to pull him in. And he says, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. And we go, well, how long is it going to take you to get ready sometime? Other times we're like, okay, let's just go get a bite to eat. Let's sit and talk, do the family thing. I know there are people like him. I also know that there are people that are on drugs, and something needs to change in their life that brings them off the drugs. We need to put a task force together, which is part of what the care court is supposed to be doing. Bring that together, put the people together that need to be on that care court. Not only them, but when you talk about the homeless, you got to be ready to say, we need more mental health people. We need more people in the social welfare department. We need more people for the eligibility side. We need to work with all of those groups and then move more people in there so that we have people to take care of the homeless population.
Two follow-ups to that point, Ms. Bernita. The first is kind of that fiscal responsibility. What do you say to folks that say, look, the state, the county, the city are already spending so much money on homelessness? Would your vision mean we have to spend even more money?
I think that's one of the issues that we have. People don't fully understand that the state has already given money. There's money already there. And whatever money we don't use is gone. It's not allocated again. That happens a lot in the Department of Human Services. It happens a lot in behavioral health. If you don't use the funds that are given to you for the year, those funds are taken back and you don't get them back. So if you don't fill positions that are already open, those funds go away.
So we're not maximizing our resources?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And that's where one of our wastes come in, because the county wastes money by not, as you said, maximizing what we get from the state and federal government. We need to make sure that every single cent that we get in from them is used within every county division that's necessary. Roads department, we need to make sure that they have everything that they need to build for their equipment to be safe, to make sure that they're able to get their equipment out, to be able to move and to clean up. We need to make sure we do that. We don't do enough of that in our county.
And going back to care court, which is something you mentioned, I believe the state essentially said any county can implement it beginning 2024 and have up to 2026 if they're not ready. Our county board of supervisors and county agencies actually said, look, we're not ready. We're going to wait until 2026 to implement it, right? So that decision's been made. Is that something you would try to change should you be elected to the board? What's your take on our county deciding that?
I would have to see all the reasons why they decided to wait. I do know that at one point they had said they were going to start something in October 2024. That hasn't happened. And so let's see what the reason is for them to back off and then come back and say, okay, how can we make a difference here? We need to move the homeless off. Just driving here today, the trash is just enormous. On the side of our freeways, in our communities, the trash is just tremendous. And a lot of it is because someone's gone in and torn down the homeless camp and left the trash, and others is because it's just left there by them.
And all of that ties into public safety, which I know is another priority of yours. At a Mojave candidate forum or gathering last week, you mentioned that the district doesn't have enough help when it comes to public safety. Can you expand on that point, please?
So I haven't gone deep into how many sheriff's officers are in every area, but I do know that when you only have 2 in Mojave, you got 1 in Boron, that's difficult. You know, you need more. There needs to be more public safety. And with the public safety comes, how are you doing the public safety with your own employees, your county employees? They're in a very dire strait when it comes to the fact that they are sometimes left to go into places where there may not be law enforcement that is ready to go in with them at times. And they can call, but if there's no one to go, they have to go in by themselves. So public safety runs across the board, and not only for them, but for us. Just knowing that sometimes people can't walk out their house. There are some public safety issues. One of the things that I saw in Mojave driving around, and it's a real public safety issue, there are some power lines that are hanging so low. Now, I was in my car and I didn't get out to see how low they were, but they were low enough that if a school bus passed them and it just swerved the wrong way or it could hit that power line. That's a public safety issue. We have lots of things within our county that are considered public safety issues.
I know I can't ask you for this one cure-all answer, Ms. Bernita, but really you talked about law enforcement, you talked about power lines, right? So public safety is a big topic in and of itself. What do we do? I mean, what are you telling your constituents? Hey, I can come in and I can do X, Y, Z to actually resolve this. What's your message when it comes to resolving those issues?
My message is this: we all need to come together. We all need to work together. And let's be a force. And it's resonated with some because they haven't had a supervisor in a very long time that's done that. And so they're like, yeah, we're ready to work with somebody that's ready to work with us. Somebody that's not caught up in the special interest, but somebody that is ready to be a part of the community. Whether it's Tehachapi, I'm over in Taft this next week. Wherever it is, they're ready for somebody to be a part of their community.
For homelessness, you mentioned the task force among Kern departments. Going back to public safety, if you can mention one concrete kind of resolution of yours, something that, even if it's just a brainstorm, a word vomit at this point, right? Just something that you're thinking, something concrete constituents can kind of better understand your vision through.
Building a better community.
What does that look like?
It means that we are able to work with the law enforcement and bring the law enforcement that our community believes that they need. That's building a better community. It'll build a stronger community. It'll stop some of the stuff that we see happening if we can all work together. There was, it's been a few years back, a neighborhood policing, I believe is what it was called, out in the Southeast. And it worked really well. And the people got to know who the law enforcement officers were for their area. I don't know if that's something that we could do today. I don't know if they have enough policemen in Bakersfield to do that, but that's one of the ways to do it. Do some type of neighborhood policing. I know they have meetings, community meetings with different organizations, and they've invited the community to come, and they don't always get a lot, but that's something that we need to continue.
And we have a 12 p.m. show, so we have a little under 10 minutes, so
Okay.
I'm just gonna quickly get through as many more questions as I can, but so does that mean, again, with law enforcement, you would support retention efforts? I know the former supervisor, he was fiscally conservative, but he was also big on making sure pay was good for our local law enforcement, and added benefits to make sure we could retain that local law force. Is that something you are on board with?
Yes, I am very much on board with that, but not only for our law enforcement, but for all of our county agencies.
Okay. And I want to get into oil and gas. When you talk about Kern County, you can't not talk about oil, gas, and agriculture. Where do you stand on those industries, Ms. Bernita?
So when I look at the oil and gas, because I just answered a question on this just recently, the oil and gas in our community or in our state is brought, most of it is shipped in, it's port. And if we could find a way to easily, efficiently, and healthy extract the oil from the ground, I think it would work for us, that we would be able to bring the prices down.
Are you on board with the various ways Sacramento kind of attempts to regulate how Kern operates its oil industry? Because that's a very big problem that the former supervisor had. He was not scared to call out Sacramento when it came to how it tried to manage our oil and gas industries.
I haven't read all, and I'm going to be very honest with you. I know that at one point fracking was a major issue.
Right. There was a lawsuit the board filed.
Yes, fracking was an issue. I think one of the biggest things that I've ever remembered, there are two. One was there was a man who fell into a sinkhole by an oil derrick out near Taft. And they didn't know it for, a couple of days, I believe it was. And when they finally found him, it was, of course, too late because it just kind of, and that was from deteriorating soil. I think that the oil companies have gotten better at taking care of their oil derricks. So I don't know if there is as much, but it is a series of things that come along with that. Not only just the oil and gas, but also jobs. And we have, for a very long time, been a oil city, and we're losing jobs because of that. As far as agriculture is concerned, I've lived in Kern County for so long. I remember when Pumpkin Center was basically a pumpkin patch. It was like all just that. And now for people to be out in that area, we have given over a lot of our land, and we need to really seriously think about how we continue to be a force in the agricultural world.
So it sounds like you are on board with retaining our agriculture
Yes.
jobs and retaining our oil jobs.
Yes.
Where do you stand on the transition to solar and clean energy then, which California is really, trying to be a vanguard of?
Well, I got a whole list of reasons why it all works in together, So I didn't know this. So the solar that's on top of my house that goes in, if there's a power outage, then it's the natural that comes in and it takes care of making sure that we are able to get our power back. So it all works together. Now, how it all works together, I haven't gotten that far, Jenny. I'm working on it. But I do believe that we do need clean energy.
Is the state planning a just transition for Kern, though? The way Sacramento is trying to implement all these clean energy methods here in Kern as well. Do you agree with how they're doing it? Do you think it'll be a just, proper transition for us when it comes to our oil and ag industry once again?
I don't think so, but again, I haven't read it all. And I do believe that we're going to suffer when it comes to jobs here in Kern County.
And obviously you're not a fan of that.
No.
You disagree with that?
Yes,
Okay.
I disagree totally, because I want people to be working.
Right.
I want good union jobs too. Oh, wait, I wasn't supposed to say that.
Well, I think that's it for me, Ms. Bernita, but are there any other issues you're really campaigning heavily on? Any other issues you think District 2 specifically really needs to address?
There's an issue out in East Kern for an animal shelter because it went away during COVID. That needs to be replaced or put back in, however it's done, it needs to be put back. And then I think that most of our cities are having issues with finances. There's not enough finances and not enough good people to step in and help with their finances. So they need good governance within their own cities.
And specific to your district, Ms. Jenkins, what's the biggest hole you think was left behind by the former leadership that you believe as a new, fresh supervisor can mend?
I think the biggest hole was the fact that people couldn't get their answers. They'd call in and nobody would answer the phone, or they call in and they talk to someone and they wouldn't get a straight answer. I think that anybody that has ever worked with me knows that I will have people that are going to be able to answer the questions. Not maybe at that moment, they will find the answer. They know that I will work to make sure everybody is heard. I don't think this district has been listened to in a very long time, and they want somebody that's going to listen and work hard for them, then I'm their choice.
And you promised to be that accessible supervisor.
See, I got into trouble in my last job because people go, would you stop being so accessible? Because now when somebody comes in behind you, what are they going to do? Well,
Yeah.
They need to learn to be accessible. And anybody that's ever worked with me, whether it's in the high school system or as a union rep, they always go, Bernita's always going to be there for whoever she's working with and for.
Alrighty. Well, Ms. Bernita, that's it for me. Good luck with your campaign.
Thank
you
you
so much again for being here today.
You're welcome.